Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us today on your Saturday. I'm sure many of you have plans. It's very nice out, especially where I'm at. But thanks for joining us. My name's Wes Van Epps. I'm from Wisconsin Voices for Recovery. I'm joined here today with my coworker, Jessica Geschke. So typically we do these Wednesdays and Fridays. And when we sent out the invitation for Dennis to come on, he's with his very busy schedule. He says, well, I could do Saturdays. And we're like, of course, we're going to bring Dennis on, even though it's a Saturday, because Dennis is doing a lot and has done a lot in the past here in the recovery field. And we just felt to be very important to talk with him and discuss some of these awesome topics that we have today. So just quick, if just a kind of run through of today's Q&A. If you have questions, feel free to type them in the bottom. There's also an option for you to raise your hand throughout. If I see that and we're kind of bouncing between topics, I'll make sure to address that, or we'll have time at the end to, if you have specific questions for Dennis. We just felt like, for those of you that have tuned in the last few weeks with this, it's just an awesome opportunity for those to just be connected through this time, talk with individuals in recovery and who advocate for recovery in the state and the nation. So it's been great to have some of our guests in the past few weeks come on. So I appreciate everybody joining us today. So like I said, we're bringing on Dennis Radloff today. So Dennis has worked in the substance use service field for over 25 years. He is an individual in long-term recovery and currently works to expand MAT services, injection drug use prevention and treatment services, methamphetamine treatment services, and recovery support services. So with that quick introduction, I'm going to bring on Dennis. So Dennis, if you could just maybe talk a little bit more about your recovery journey.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Wes. Thank you, Jesse. I always enjoy working with the two of you and the good work you do for our recovery communities. You're definitely champions and pillars in our community, and I have nothing but gratitude and respect for the good, hard, dedicated work you keep doing. It's actually kind of humbling to be invited, and I don't know what I got to share entirely, but my recovery journey has been it's been a wild ride, to say the least. I very humbly and very gratefully like to share with people when I have the opportunity. I've been sober half my life now. My recovery journey's been over 26 years. So if you do the math, I'm not 30 something or even 40 something anymore. And probably one of, if there was one thing that I really think would be, that I really wanted is on my heart to share today, the greatest thing that happened in my recovery journey happened very, very early on. And that was an employment opportunity with the AIDS Resource Center of Wisconsin, and an opportunity to work with a gentleman named Scott Stokes. And I know that we might get into talking, you've mentioned the syringe access services, and we'll probably talk about some overdose prevention work in the lock zone. Scott Stokes is the godfather of harm reduction for the state of Wisconsin, if not the Midwest. And if anything, has helped expand my mind. Because one of my earlier jobs, being a when I first got into recovery, things were a lot different then than they are now. And 26 years ago, I went to a treatment center that had a treatment plan was pulled out of a drawer that was already completed, and it included things like, we'll attend meetings, we'll complete the first 3 steps. Not exactly what we would call individualized treatment, comparatively to how we approach substance use disorders today. And it was challenging as a person who had a very, and I was on fire in my recovery. And my recovery for me then and still today is a 12-step approach and abstinence-based. But there was a part of me that also had a very strong heart for the people that I knew weren't connecting and identifying with that 12-step message. And even though I didn't understand entirely what harm reduction meant, I wanted to be the first kid on my block to be, opening up a harm reduction-based actual treatment center and doing harm reduction-based treatment work, and it intrigued me and it appealed to me. And even early on, I can remember going back and forth with Scott all the time. It's like, well, we're going to get them into the meetings, right? They're all going to get sober, right? And I've learned that that's not what harm reduction means today. Along the way, it's been an evolution and a journey. And today, as much as I'm grateful for and I embrace and believe in the 12-step program for me and my friends, I know it's not the only way. It's not the only path. And I know that the 12-step approach is really one potential journey path on the entire continuum of what I consider of what I believe is harm reduction. Harm reduction encaptures all of us, and it's not about whether somebody is sober by a 12-step approach or if somebody's actively injecting a substance yet, and a really big part and component that I've really just come to embrace and respect and appreciate is just the simple element of human dignity and stigma reduction for every substance user. That this path and this journey and what harm reduction does so well is it captures that, especially the value of a human life and the need of a service, the importance of a service, and the way that we can make a difference in somebody's journey on that harm reduction continuum. How we can that even if it isn't about it doesn't have to, everything doesn't have to equate and equal into getting into treatment and getting quote unquote sober. That even our recovery communities have evolved so much, to the point today that there's so many paths that are recognized and appreciated and respected, and I sincerely do appreciate. And if somebody tells me they're in recovery, I never asked, oh, well, what path are you on? It doesn't matter. Anytime a person has found a path that improves the quality of their life, especially if it's reduced, eliminated, and taken away a fatal overdose death risk, or has eliminated and removed that they need to trade their body for money, drugs, or shelter anymore, if they can function in what they define as productive way to honor whatever commitments are important to them, that's what matters. And I'm getting way off in the weeds here. So my journey has been, it has nothing. It has less to do with me and more to do with all of you, with the people that have been in my life. From the people that have been involved in my early sobriety to people that I've met in the last week of my sobriety. I'm constantly learning. I'm always learning and learning and learning. I'll stop.
No, it's okay. No, and I think too that, you started diving into one of the main topics that we wanted to talk about today, and that was harm reduction, and even like looking at the multiple pathways of recovery that you mentioned. There's so many different options out there that I've seen too that individuals are taking. And I think what I would want to ask you, Dennis, is during your recovery journey, has that always been something, looking at multiple pathways and your beliefs in harm reduction and multiple pathways of recovery, is that something you've always believed in? Or was there a point in your life where it was kind of eye-opening and a realization around that? Did you want to discuss maybe a little bit more about that, or is it something that you've always truly believed in?
Well, I'd like to say it's something I've always truly believed in. That is true, but truly believing, even as much as you truly believe in something, for me, that's even an evolutionary process. Like in the early days, as much as I believed it, if I'm being completely honest with everybody, 26 years ago, the recognition or acknowledgement of another pathway other than the one that I was on, and I, was more of a token appreciation. It's like, okay, that's cute, you're doing that, good for you, but
Yeah.
but one day you'll make it over here where into the light and find your real, find the and that was, as much as it would be easy to say that was arrogant, it was really more just ignorant and closed-minded and not that it was I know a lot of people, I think a lot of people can maybe relate to this. I had found something that worked for me, that pulled me out of the grips of despair. When I finally got into treatment and started my recovery path, I was at Salvation Army with a suitcase. That was my life. My entire life had been reduced to a resident. My residency was Salvation Army. My belongings were in a suitcase. And for me, that 12-step program saved my life in conjunction with treatment. And the options weren't there. So over time, though, I would say I began realizing early on, though, too, as much as it worked for me, I could see how I knew too many people who it didn't work for them. And once it started going to too many funerals, I'll be the first one to say I believe full-heartedly this 12-step community has a lot of growing up to still do in regard to embracing and meeting people where they're at. And I'm not one of the members of that community that is going to sit back and be like, well, they'll come back when they're ready. No, they won't. We're not living in a day and age where a relapse is going to be equated with a drunk driving ticket, and you maybe come back, in worst case scenario, you're divorced, you lost your home. Today relapse means a morgue. It means, when they talk about those bitter ends. And I think, and I would say, at least for me, that's where we're doing harm reduction work and working with active users through syringe access programs and a harm reduction based day treatment program, and really, for many, many years, even in the treatment field, we talk about individualized treatment programming and motivational interviewing and all of, rational emotive therapy, all these, person-centered approaches to supposedly really meet people where they're at. But in the end of the day, early on, that's not how the practice actually went down. It was very program-driven, program-focused, with a program narrow kind of cookie-cutter scope of service that didn't embrace and meet people. In my opinion, many of our earlier treatment modalities really just set people up to fail because it was asking people to make a commitment to abstinence, a level of readiness that doesn't just happen in a snap because you signed a document, and to just ask, and that's where harm reduction and having an encompassing range of recovery paths for people, including and respecting MAT, medicine-assisted treatment. One of the things that drives me crazy still, if we look at our, in regard to just like human dignity and stigma reduction, we look at our recovery models, even still today, compared to any and all other medical models, there's still a lot of disparity there in what I would call unfairness for folks that are finding success in their path. Take smokers. Take somebody who is a smoker, and someone's like, "Yeah, I quit smoking." And you ask, "Well, how'd you do it?" "Well, I'm on day 90, and the nicotine gum has been amazing, and it's helping me do that." And everyone would celebrate that, and they're like, "Awesome, way to go, good for you."
Yeah.
Somebody tells you, "I've been clean from opiates for 90 days," and you ask them how they do it, and they're like, "I'm doing awesome in in an outpatient setting with buprenorphine," and you get a recoil from some people, "Well, that ain't real recovery, you're not really sober, that's just not fair. It's not fair to discount that, that's a path of recovery that's more significant than my path of recovery right now." and should be celebrated and embraced. And there's still so many disparities in that way. So I'm trying to, oh boy, this time is going by quick.
You're fine. You're fine.
But it's been evolutionary, and part of it has been the benefit of being a person with lived experience who's had the opportunity to work closely, what I would say, in the trenches with people like you and the people who are on this meeting right now. I know some of the people who are personally in this meeting. Whether we work in a treatment setting or simply as a member of the recovery community, we're all doing frontline work to help that next person get the opportunities that we found. It's significant, it's important, and it matters more than any treatment modality in the world. It all starts with us, I think.
No, and thanks for sharing that, Dennis. I know that can be a topic that we could talk about for an hour or so. And I'm sure individuals in this call could also chime in and talk about their experiences with that too. But I think the next thing that I want to touch on and have you talk a little bit about, you say that there's an ongoing need for advocacy and equality. Can you share a little bit more about that?
Kind of getting back to even like the example about somebody who quit smoking by using Chantix. Not that I'm endorsing any kind of medication, but it's an easily identifiable one. If somebody quit smoking, through the use of, say, a medication and nicotine gum, we're going to celebrate that. Getting back to harm reduction, and so you take. If you look at the other medical models, take somebody who's diabetic, that maybe struggles with the behavioral health side of it, the actual diet changes, the exercise changes, and they don't get shamed, they don't get judged, they don't get turned away from services, they don't get excluded from support systems. They actually get rallied around and supported and encouraged. And that's like just one example I still see in the disparity of even the differences in our recovery paths and the way I've seen and heard certain, we all need to stay open-minded to staying unified and appreciating and respecting that any positive change is a positive change. And, to continue to do advocacy work. I know that Wisconsin Voices for Recovery does a lot of high-profile advocacy platform events that bring and pull. We need more activities like that to unify. And I'm of the mind that it starts with us and having those conversations, maybe even just one-on-one with our friends in recovery. And not doing it in a judgmental, getting mad kind of thing. Because it's easy to get judgmental and mad and want to argue it, but, to embrace and raise awareness and share with respect and dignity. We need to continue advocating for our brothers and our sisters, the husbands and the wives and the sons and the daughters that are struggling with, that are not at the quality of life that they would choose to have as a result of their substance use today. They need us as much as we need them. And I can't get complacent and comfortable, in the rewards of my journey. Because I'm only where I'm at because of what other people did for me. And that's something that I wear on my heart very, very strongly. I can't ever take my eye off of, it's my responsibility to keep thinking about those that aren't where we're at. Whatever that means, that we need to keep, because it's not going to be typically the bureaucrats or the politicians and the higher ups that are thinking that way. We're the ones who know what it's like to bury a friend. We're the ones who knows what it's like to bury a loved one, to lose a loved one. And we're the ones who know the challenges of the mechanisms as improved and modified as they become, and as much as we've evolved, it's an ongoing work. We need to keep evolving and growing to keep as many open pathways and entry points for the members of our community that we're working with and trying to help.
Yeah, I think that kind of leads into this next little discussion here about the apparent face-to-face disconnection and how people are having to adjust with to stay connected. So what do you feel is the most important right now with the recovery movement for individuals to stay connected, and maybe even some examples of how you've had to adapt?
It's more important than ever, because a big part, I think, of when I think of recovery community, I think of union and unity and togetherness, and it's very event and social based, with interactions and being together and connecting. It's about getting out of isolation and into unification. That's a big part of, in my mind, what the magic of recovery. It's about me not sitting around alone in my own head coming up with my best ideas. That's what got me into my biggest trouble. It has been super, I think, and I know it's been challenging. I've been leaning on the people that are my close friends in my recovery system. Thank God for Zoom. Who would have thought Zoom would be as instrumental and important as, I think if the COVID epidemic has proven anything to us, that's, in the recovery community and also our mental health and substance use delivery systems, telehealth services have really risen to the top and have become captured and valued and recognized as how important essentially it can really be as a alternative to actual face-to-face services. So I've been, utilizing some Zoom meetings, but the thing that works for me the most is, like on my phone, I can do 3-way calls, and I've been introducing people that are friends of mine that have never met each other before, and just having conversations and sharing the people I love and care about, who love and care about me, with each other, and working on keeping that unity. And yeah, I believe, that giving back is a big part. So as much as I'm not able to interact and give back in some ways, I give back to my job as much as I can. I give back through, and I've been giving back even in the sense of like with my neighbors and strangers, and doing things for people that, just by recently, anytime I leave where I live, I pass a neighbor and it's a quick hand wave, and I've been taking the opportunity, even if it's from, just from my deck the other day, to say, hey, how's it going? And discover that this is a person who's afraid and doesn't, and needs things from the community. And I've been really grateful to be able to go out and gather just some of the things this individual needs and leave it at their doorstep. Giving, continuing to reach out and give and find out what I can do. What can I do to be helpful? To stay, is my way of staying connected.
Great. Thanks for sharing that, Dennis. I think a lot of people, a lot of individuals know you, from across the state here for one of your many roles. I know that I mentioned some things that you do right now in the current field and the current position that you hold in the state, but many of for your role as Narcan training. Is there any additional resources that have been provided that people could get Narcan, or where can they get it right now? Just because I know us here at Voices, we've also seen and heard a huge rise in overdoses, and we're doing the best we can to try to give out and provide naloxone to organizations in the state that need it. So I'm not sure if you have some more insight on that and where individuals can get some.
I know that Vivint Health, formerly AIDS Resource Center, Wisconsin, with all the safer at home and practices and things, a lot of services have been either discontinued or modified. But I know that Vivint Health, any of their syringe access services, are still providing Narcan. naloxone or Narcan. I know they provide either the intramuscular syringe and vial formulation or the Narcan nasal spray formulation. And I believe they're operating by like telehealth first or telecommunication first, calling, and making an arrangement for an exchange at either one of their offices or through one of their mobile van services. I know that many of our health departments that have been equipped recently there is on the DHS website. There's oh gosh, I should have that link. There's a map. There's a state map of all the Narcan direct distribution points.
What I can do too is I'll get that map and I can put it when I post this video. I'll share a link to that so individuals can have that. Cool. Anything else on that topic of Narcan, Dennis? I know that you also do Narcan trainings. I know that I'm sure that that's something that's not happening at this point. But are there any scheduled, trainings coming up that haven't been canceled yet that you're going to be a part of or that you know of?
I've been doing a lot of work with my coworker Christy Nemeth at DCTS, the Division of Care and Treatment Services. Since last fall, Christy launched the Narcan Direct program, and we were in full scale around the state doing TOT trainers. Those have all been suspended currently. The only work we recently have done has been some emergency Narcan Direct for our OTPs. They've been continuing services for their clients around the state, but we've been very just COVID emergency response. In a variety of ways, things are starting to slow down enough that we're looking at getting back to how do we move forward, as we're hopefully moving in a healing and forward manner with COVID-19. Will we be able to provide in-person trainings in the near future? Do we need to start, considering maybe utilizing a Zoom platform? And I know that we're also working with, we've been working with the two of you on a very innovative and needed idea that Jesse has spearheaded. And so I know behind the scenes, there's a lot of attention and realization and acknowledgement about this disparity that's going on right now. And I wish I had a better answer. I'm busting my tail on trying to find some ways. So the two of you'll probably be hearing from me before the week is up. But I do see a question in the chat that I want to be sure to grab before we wrap up here. And the question is that what's considered success in the harm reduction modality? And I'll just and additionally it asks, is one sobriety / clean time one's own answer if they're utilizing drug replacement therapy? And that is a really good question, and it speaks, I think, very much to, really in a nutshell, it speaks entirely to what we've been talking about, in embracing and respecting and all the different paths of recovery, in regard to, for me, it comes back to human dignity. And whenever I get the opportunity to share it, and questions come up about, well, how much Narcan, how many times are we going to give somebody Narcan, or this, that, and the other thing, I'm like, until we can all agree on the value of human life in an equal sense, regardless of what an individual's situation is, we're going to continue to be having these challenges especially with some of what we would, maybe consider the more radical harm reduction approaches like naloxone distribution and syringe access services and MAT therapies. But for me, if there's no difference in, in my path of recovery or in what I consider sobriety to another person who's there. If they've improved the quality of their life through an MAT, whether it's methadone, whether it's buprenorphine, whether it's naltrexone, and it has taken away the risk factors in their life for them, whatever those risk factors are, the risk factors of sex, street-based sex work, whether it's the risk factors of opioid use and fatal overdose, the risk factors of domestic violence, whatever those risk factors are for that in that person's life, that's a success story to me. And I'm going to respect that. I'm trying to be mindful and not disclose anybody. I know many people that have struggled, who have attempted to enter even like 12-step communities, and when they've opened up that they're, and I look at any form of medication that's helping somebody. There's a lot of people that have an improved quality of life and are enjoying a very rich life of recovery for mental health, that had mental health issues. And the only reason they're where they're at today is because of a medication. And it breaks my heart when I hear somebody who I would call a purist, tell that person, well, you're not really sober. And that's BS. That's not for me to say. If somebody's quality of life has been improved and they're working with a therapist, a doctor, a treatment team, therapy, whatever it is, and they're happier than they've ever been, and their life is improved because of that, my hat's off to them, and I'm going to do whatever I can to go out of my way to encourage and support and advocate that that's as much of a valuable path of recovery as mine is. If I want my path of recovery respected, knowing that not everybody embraces and appreciates 12-step approach, if I want mine respected, it starts with me. I better damn well respect somebody else's too. It's a hard question to answer quickly, but I think, and that's where some of that challenge comes and gets back into that, what we were talking about in regard to advocacy and, being open-minded and being encompassing. And even if somebody shows up and they're out of it, I'd rather have them in a meeting with me out of it for an hour, because that's an hour of their life. They're not going to die.
Yeah.
That's an hour of their life that they're surrounded by people who give a rip. Even if everybody doesn't give a rip, at least one person in that room, if I'm in that meeting, I'm going to give a rip. I'm going to reach out and I'm going to keep working with that person. I need to not forget where I came from, and I didn't get here like that. I didn't get it like that. I struggled. I still struggle. I might not struggle with what we call that burning desire to use, but after 5 weeks of being, I'm at odds with everybody I live with right now, and I live alone. I've been unplugged from my recovery community in the traditional ways, too long now, and I'm not exempt. I'm not. I've never been. I never will be perfect. I'm just one of many, and I believe we're all in the same boat. We're all in the same boat. And the waters are full of sharks still today, and I don't want to be in the water. So if you want to, anybody, any and all are welcome, I believe, in this boat. I don't think and I think the boat used to be considered 12-step or abstinence-based treatment, and I consider the boat today recovery, and recovery embraces and captures anyone who's working on making positive change to eliminate the risk factors in their life. It's because it's a continuum. As long as we can keep somebody safe, healthy, and alive through the riskiest moments of their life, that's a success. It doesn't have to be qualified with a treatment modality, a treatment outcome. As far as I'm concerned, if we can keep somebody safe, healthy, and alive, regardless of what they do or don't change, that's the success. The same way a doctor would respond to somebody who's having a heart attack. They're not going to get in and scoff at them and judge them because they got barbecue sauce still all over the face, or because they're overweight, or they haven't followed the diet, or whatever the example might be. They're gonna drop everything and do whatever they can to save that person's life. That's the medical model for any health disparity, for anybody who enters an emergency room. Do we do the same thing for somebody that has a substance use challenge? We got to keep advocating that human dignity component, because that could be a whole nother. I'm getting back out in the weeds. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, it definitely does, Dennis. And I think, definitely your input on this and the message that you're bringing across today is very appreciated. What I would like to do quick before we wrap up for today is just open it up to anybody else that has questions for Dennis. So if anyone else has questions, now would be the time to either type it in, or you could even ask him yourself. Let me look here. Doesn't look like anybody. I think what we'll do then is, Jess, did you have anything that you wanted to ask Dennis before we close up for today?
Again, thank you, Dennis, so much for coming on. I think, not so much a question, but I just wanted to make a quick statement. I just really, really appreciate your candidness. And I wanted to just, I was thinking about today and preparing for this Q&A, and Wisconsin Voice has been so blessed to have so many people come on our Q&As on the last couple of weeks, and we do it with people that we know. And I think today, sitting here listening to you talk, I was thinking back to when I first met you, and I was like, I met you in it's 2015, I think. And I remember you rolling up at one of our rallies in West Bend, and you called me and asked if you could come to that event. And I thought, oh, I really don't think I want this guy here. You know what you stood for, right? And so I was like, right, that was you. And I was like, I don't think I want this dude at this event. And I remember listening to you that day, talking to people about Narcan. And in my own head, I was like, this guy is enabling people to use. And so we were talking earlier about, and I was writing notes about how, because I was a counselor, and how we have to push our own belief systems and get out of our ways. And I just want to thank you, because you were instrumental in my life and have been this entire time of pushing my own thoughts, right, and my own processes to get out of my own way, because I did not believe in that harm reduction model for a really long time. I was one of those old school 15 years in the field counselors who was like, no, they have to do it this way. But you were someone who came into my life at the right time, and you showed me a different way. And I think, when at Wisconsin Voices, we sit back and we watch you and all the amazing things that you are doing in this state and the lives that you are changing. And I wanted to say that, and just to say thank you so much, because you are instrumental in this state. And I just don't think you hear that enough. But you are amazing, and you deserve to be thanked over and over and over for the things that you do. So thank you so much.
I'm gonna make me cry.
Well, I know you don't hear it enough, and just so thank you. We're blessed at Wisconsin Voices to have you administering grants and just the level that you do for people in this state. So thank you.
I'm your number one fan. The work that it's been about a 3-year journey. I wasn't involved in the beginning of that, and it's grown and changed so much from its initial origins, but it's maintained its initial origins, and it's an amazing, outstanding it's incredible. If I could real quick, I know we're over time already.
That's all right.
There was one thing that was shared with me that was really a game changer for me in regard to, when I used to do direct services, and I give a lot of this credit to Scott Stokes, and things that I've learned from him. He's been an incredible mentor in my life. Anything I'm saying today is not one original thing. I'm a little bit of all of you, but the one thing that really changed my approach to working with people that have a substance use challenge, whatever that encounter is, whether it's a syringe access service, a Narcan training, individual session, whatever they've been, I was challenged to look to think about, and it was pointed out to me, is like, I am, when I'm face to face with somebody, I'm entering their life. They're not, they're, and I'm a guest on their journey for that moment. They're not a guest in my life. I might be the provider. I might be the service worker. I might be the one with all the resources. But at the end of the day, when whatever that interaction is about, whatever it is that they're seeking, it's about what they're seeking. It's about what matters and what's important to them. It's not about what I think is going to be a best outcome. It's not. I'm punching in as a guest, an honored guest, for maybe 5 minutes of their life, and then I'm punching out, because as much as I care, the reality is I'm going back to a life that I've worked hard on enjoying in my recovery. They're not coming with me. I'm punching out, and they're continuing on in whatever disparity it is that they're struggling with. And I can't afford to waste that 5 minutes, whether it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, with trying to get them to see it my way or buy into what I think is going to work best for them. And that's where I believe we have the greatest capacity beyond any educated, not taken away from higher education. That's where the people who do this work that have lived experience have the greatest advantage, in that we've got education and abilities and experiences that have us equipped to have those engagements. And if I stay out of the way, when you said that, Jesse, it's about me staying out of the way. And I think about that every time I have somebody that I encounter somebody, whether it's at a meeting, in just my personal recovery life, or if it's a professional interaction. When that person's struggling, hurting, in a risky situation, when our interaction's done, that situation isn't going away because of our interaction. They're continuing. That I just got a privileged glimpse of, in a very small opportunity, to do something to hopefully be helpful. They're not punching out of that and going back to a different situation. They're continuing on in a very challenging situation. And when I began realizing that in that context and looking at it that way, and it changed my approach, and it's still a very important part of my approach today. So you Jesse kind of got me to remember that and think of that. So thank you, Dennis.
Thank you. We do have one other question or comment here, so I'm going to bring in Chrisma. Chrisma, do you have something to share? Hold on, let me unmute you. All right, you should be unmuted now. Go ahead.
There we go. This is why I love these opportunities, because of the transparent shares that happen. So thanks for sharing your experience, Jess, because that was similar to the experience I had with you, Dennis. It was about 2 years ago. You were at a conference sharing, and I was on some mad rant in my head about big pharma and clinics not doing best practices and just being angry and having to like walk out. But this is so inspiring, and I was thinking like, oh, I have to share this information with my staff, but really it's going to come best from you. So thank you Wes and Jess for putting this on and like recording this opportunity, because I think it'll create more of a conversation, like instead of it coming from me of like, this is, coming from you and your experience. It is really inspiring, and I think we'll be able to have a much better conversation after sharing, what you've just shared. So thank you all.
Well, thank you for the great work you do.
Thank you, Chrisma. Does anybody else have any last comments or questions for Dennis? Dennis, we do really appreciate you coming on. I'm just going to open it up here for give another 10, 20 seconds if anybody wants to jump in and ask anything for Dennis before we close it up for today.
I just want to say thank you to all of you. I just feel safe in assuming and knowing that anybody who's here today, you're a champion in your community, in the recovery community, in the professional community, and I think even for those of us, if our interactions are recovery community interactions, those are interactions that are translating a lot of times into like treatment community interactions and helping community interactions. We're all on the clock, whether you realize it or not. And I know for me, I think I'm going and getting taking care of me, in my recovery. But the way it worked, we're all doing. I know that everybody on here today is doing direct work to make changes in people's lives, even if you don't hear it. Thank you, Jesse. You're so sweet. I want to make sure you all hear it. The work you do matters. Your recovery matters. Your lived experience matters, and what you give to other people matters. You're making a difference. I'm so grateful that you're all where you're at, and thanks for sharing this time together. Be well.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dennis. And I know that we've had a lot of thank yous in the comments too. I'm sure everybody would love to say thank you, and I'm sure they all have a story, impactful story that you made on their lives. So we appreciate you coming on today. And for those of you that have been tuning in, we're going to be continuing this process of bringing on individuals. So be on the lookout next week. We have some really awesome individuals lined up, including a recovery coach trainer, Art Woodard. So he's going to be joining us on Wednesday and just talking about recovery coaching, relationships, and training. And then we do have an awesome guest in Rogers Hospital next Friday. So just talking about kind of their barriers of treatment right now during the COVID-19 and the services that they're still providing. So yeah, stay tuned next week, guys. We appreciate the support for this. Thank you again, Dennis, and everybody. Go enjoy the rest of your day. It looks like it's going to be a good weekend. So maybe get out and do some yard work or sit on the deck or whatever. Get outside, but of course, still follow the safe at home order. That's very crucial right now.
Thank you, everyone.